so we were working a lot with the Maasai people group, and like we've said, they practice polygamy. So, you
Hmm.
know, we'll marry multiple wives, and kind of the more wives you marry, the more status you have. Like
Yeah.
you must be wealthy, you must be, and they have to give a certain amount of. It sounds so silly in our culture, but they actually pay
Bride price.
wives by giving the cattle or giving
Mm.
goats. Like they pay for a wife, and so the more wives they have means that they must be wealthy, and so they try to marry as many women as possible. But because of that, there's if there's also a lot of widows. Like if one man passes away, he leaves a lot of wives, and culturally they don't get remarried, and so they end up being like kind of like these I wouldn't say outcasts, but they live on the outskirts of, kind of like they don't have a family, they don't really have a home. So, some of them are able to go back to their old families, but anyways, it's a huge issue
Yeah,
basically.
yeah.
And so and then with kind of within this, there's a lot of um like the women do what the men say. And so like if the husband accepts Jesus, the women accept Jesus. If the husband won't accept Jesus, usually the women aren't allowed, or maybe
Okay.
they do careful, so it's like it's very much like a patriarchal, is that the right word? Patriarchal um uh
Society, yeah.
society. Thank you. Yeah, society. And so, okay, so anyways, we were going out. Well, so this also provides a lot of room for like widow ministry. And so we were going out giving bags of food and supplies to widows. They don't really have a way to provide for themselves. And anyways, so I was out with the team doing that, and it was like around dinner time, and we've been told by the translators and by the hosts, like, okay, when kind of around the dinner time, that's the time when they bring their herds back into their uh, fenced in area, their shrub fenced area. And that's when they start milking. They've got to milk their cattle and whatever. And so, like, don't try not to bother them during this time. Like, that will make it more difficult for us. Like, yeah, just don't bother them during this time. Okay, so we were there. We had given one, there was a widow who lived kind of with this family group, but her husband had died, obviously. And so, we were giving bags of food to this widow and her kids. And we were leaving, and one of the students in our group, she's the best. She was like, I have to know if they know Jesus. Like, we knew that the widow believed in Jesus, but we didn't know if the the rest of the family she was living with knew Jesus. And there were like it was a large family group. So this like Boma complex, there was like one older man that looked like he must have been like the father, and there were a lot of women around and a lot of kids around, and then there were a few other men who looked like maybe they were his sons. So sometimes like a son, like there will be a father, all the wives, and then an older son might get married and like build his houses and his wife's houses nearby. So it was a large family grouping. I'm just trying to give you context for
Yeah.
like
Yep.
a lot of kids like around. And so, anyways, the student who needed was like, I need to know if they know Jesus. And we kind of know like this is really not the time. This is like kind of the one rule. They haven't given us a lot of rules. It's really safe in Tanzania. There's not a ton of rules, but like this is kind of the one cultural rule we've been told, like try to stick to this. Don't bother them when it's like milking time. Okay. So she asked the translator, can I ask them if they know Jesus? And the translator like hesitated and was like, I don't know. And then the translator was like, and this translator is like a fiery Christian, like loves Jesus. She's very passionate. She's really cool. So she kind of, then she was like, you know what? Let's just go. Let's ask. You can ask, but like kind of be quick. So the student asked them, "Have you heard of Jesus before?" And the translator translated, and they they kind of all stopped what they were doing, or like maybe were still milking, but
Yeah,
like
but listening.
listening. Okay, and there's a lot. There's maybe like 15 adults, and I don't know how. It's hard to count the kids. They're all everywhere. A
Yeah.
lot of kids, and so they're all listening, and so they asked her, what do you mean, who's Jesus, and so she just shares the gospel with them, and more people started coming around. Like, I don't even know where these people came from, but they were like coming out from the mud huts, and coming out from around the fence and whatever. And at the end, she shared for maybe 5 minutes, or 3 minutes, 3 or 5 minutes, and at the end, like, she asked them, like, okay, like, what do you think? And so they respond, the translator translates and says, they say this is a good story. And so then she says, okay, the student, she says, okay, do you want to, like, accept Jesus and make him the king of your life, or something like that?
Yeah.
And the translator translates, and the translator says, they want Jesus. And then the translator says, hold on. And the translator's talking with them in the language. And the translator told us, she was like, I asked them, like, do you understand what this means? Like, you're giving your life to Jesus. And we didn't know there's a backstory of there's been this pastor coming to them, sharing about Jesus. And they've been really hard, they've been really like closed off.
Yeah.
Um, so the translator translates back to us and says, they say this is a good story, and why would we not accept it? And so then so then they all come around, like this whole family, and I don't know, there's tons of people around now. And they're all there, and the translator kind of takes it away. And so the student isn't
Yeah.
talking anymore. The translator like takes it away and has them like pray this prayer to like receive Jesus, make him the Lord of their life. And so they're all like praying it, and they're holding hands, and some of them are like crying a little bit, like the older one, like the old men. And because the men accepted Jesus, like, then all the wives like were accepting Jesus too, because they're like,
Yeah.
this is what our tribe is doing. Tribe, I call it a tribe, but a
Right.
tribe is we are following Jesus. And so, anyways, it was like one of my favorite experiences of just like Jesus broke in. And um we were when we were leaving, so we had a translator with us, and then we had a pastor with us, and a Messiah pastor. And the Messiah pastor told us that he's been like really praying for this Boma, this family people group, or this village family. And he said that the Lord gave him a verse. I wish I remembered what the verse was. Probably have it written somewhere, but gave him a verse while we were there. And the verse was like, is there anything too hard for God?
Mm.
Like, and so, because he was kind of like, there's no way this family's ever going to come to Jesus. And so, yeah, it was really cool. And it kind of gave me new perspective on, like, I don't know, just the way God uses, like, we could all do ministry in our hometown, and that's amazing, and that's super good. But there's something God does when people come from other nations, other countries, and like, there's somehow, I don't know why he's like softens people's hearts to someone from another culture in a way that I don't know how to explain, other than he does it. And so, like, missions is so important,
Yeah.
like, and it's important to do ministry in your hometown. I'm not making that little or anything, but like, I don't know, he just does stuff when you go to other countries
Yeah.
and share the gospel, and you have this reception that you don't have maybe in your own hometown, kind of like Jesus, not being received in his hometown
Oh,
or
that's
something.
great. Yeah. Yeah.
I don't know, there's just something. So
Yeah.